Hello there, amazing people. Welcome back to Just a Cup, where coffee is optional, but honest conversation really isn't. I'm your host, Bryan Fetzer. Each episode, we sit down with athletes, coaches, leaders, entrepreneurs, and people who have been tested, forced to adapt, learned a few lessons along the way, usually the hard way. We're going to talk performance, adversity, strategy, leadership, mental health, kind of a wide range of topics. So grab your coffee, water, energy drink, whatever keeps you going during the day, and let's get into it. I am so excited. Today, our guest went from non-league football to the Premier League. We got to touch base on soccer, or football as the whole world calls it, especially after the World Cup. He represented England at the international youth level, fought his way back from two major ACL injuries to the same knee, ironically. And after a career with some big clubs, Sunderland, what they've done last year in the Premier League, kind of a shock to a lot of people. Middlesbrough, Millwall, Rotherham United. Duncan Watmore recently retired at 32 and is beginning a new chapter as the head of elite performance and business development at a company called Peak 4 over in England, which that company's doing some amazing things. And his story is much more about football. It's about setbacks, identity, resilience, and knowing when it's time, to take everything that the game taught you and build it into something new. So, Duncan, I'm so excited to get you on Just a Cup. Welcome.
No, thank you so much for having me, Bryan. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Hey, so let's get started. Before professional football, England call-ups, the Premier League, what were you like growing up? When did you first think that, hey, this football thing, or to my American audience, soccer, you have to kind of translate that for them a little bit, what might become something, a little bit more than just the game you loved?
Yeah, well, as a kid, I think my mum would say I was a bit of a nightmare in terms of my energy levels. I used to, run around nonstop. I had two older brothers and a younger brother, so we used to play a lot of sport. And yeah, football was something that I was thankfully naturally quite good at. And I joined Manchester United at the age of 6. So obviously one of the biggest clubs in the world, and that was quite an honour to be there. And so at that age, football became everything for me. But then, unfortunately, I got released at the age of 12, and that was a setback in its own way. And so from that point on, I'll be honest, I didn't think I'd necessarily have a career because of that setback. And that was kind of where it was at that stage.
You just mentioned getting, the release by Man U. Did that early kind of rejection, did it put like a chip on your shoulder, or did it kind of help you in some way that way?
Yeah, I think if I'm honest, I remember going home and crying, when I got released, and I thought that was my dream over. And I fell out of love for a bit. And I did other sports. I played golf and cricket. And I carried on a bit with football, but I did fall out of love. And then I wouldn't say I had a chip on my shoulder. I just, if anything, it knocked me back, and I had to give myself time to kind of get over that, and then start coming back up through non-league, which you kind of touched upon.
Yeah, so let's touch specifically on that. Non-league, the Sunderland, who's playing in European football this next year, to the Premier League, under 21s, all that. What was kind of the biggest adjustment mentally that you found yourself kind of in those different levels, the different areas?
Well, it was a huge step up. So I played non-league, part-time football. I went to university in Manchester and studied economics. And then Sunderland in the Premier League bought me at the age of 19. And that was a huge jump. It was 6 divisions. It was full-time. It was elite football, the best of the Premier League. And I was a 19-year-old kid who was going out with his mates and studying economics. You know what I mean? So it was a really big step up for me. And I think the biggest change mentally was first the level of intensity. But I think it was more, not the level of intensity on the pitch. It was everything that came with it, the full-time sacrifice needed to make it at that level. The pressure, the that every little, margins that you kind of you try and creep and get better at. And I just started realizing, wow, this is a whole new level, and the whole package and everything. You're going to need a lot more sacrifice if you really want to have this a go.
Well, you just mentioned this, and I think it's worth touching on. You earned a degree, and then you later completed your master's while playing professional football. Was education always part of kind of preparing for life after football, or did it simply just give you something outside of the bubble to kind of look at?
No, it's a good way of looking at it. It's both. It was because of my new unique route. I was already started my degree, and I really wanted to finish it. And if I'm honest, I did get certain pushback from the club. They supported me, but occasionally you'd get the comments like, can you combine both? Football's your priority. And it was my priority, but I used to go home and catch up in the evening, all the lectures. So for 2 years, I didn't really have a social life, if I'm honest. It was football and then studies, football and then studies. So that was tough. But it was cool because when I graduated, I got a first class degree, and I became the second Premier League player in history to graduate with first class honours. So for a league that's been going on for that long, it was quite a cool moment for me, a proud moment for the sacrifice and work that I put in to get there. And I felt really lucky to be able to do that.
It's amazing. I mean, you established yourself, playing in the Premier League, building some real momentum, and then the challenge changed almost overnight. It was no longer just about proving you belong, but fighting to get back on the pitch because of injuries. I mean, you tore your ACL, spent 9 months, working your way back, and then injured the same knee again, and just getting back in it. With saying that, when you realized you had to kind of start the entire process over again, where did your mind go? I can't even imagine that.
Yeah, it was really, really tough. I'll be honest. I was at the top. I was Premier League. I was England under 21. A lot of my teammates in that England 21s are now stars of the World Cup for the England national team, and huge names, and rightly so, because they're amazing players. But I was in that kind of, whether I would have got that high, I doubt it anyway. Even without the injuries, I wasn't as good as some of these guys. I'll be honest. But I was in a good place, and things were going up. And then one moment my knee kind of ACL snapped, both meniscus. I'm out for a year, come back, and the rehab that took just to come back from that one every day. And then in the 6th game back, it went again. And I'd done everything right. I'd done everything I physically could. And so to have that and then realize, actually, I don't know what I've done wrong here, and it's happened again. I don't know how I'm going to overcome this. I did have real doubts that my career might be over and I'll never get back there. And so, there was a big period of uncertainty, of doubt, and I needed time to process that. And then I found an inner kind of acceptance. Like, I just went, there is no point fighting this. This is what's happened. This is the cards have been dealt. Let's make the most of them. And I kind of, instead of having a huge perspective, I went very narrow, and I went, let's just do what I need to do today. And let's just keep doing that day after day, and let's see where it gets me. And going on from that, it did take another 14 months to get back. So that was 2 and a bit years. And then unfortunately I got a bad tackle on my ankle, and I was out for another 4 or 5 months. So it was about 3 years I didn't really play football. And that really struggled. And I actually, on the back of all that and all the physical injuries, I struggled with my mental health in that time as well, because of everything that went on.
I couldn't even imagine. I mean, when you get, and I think for people that have never played sport or have never played sport at such the elite level, when the medical staff says, hey, you're ready to go, how difficult is it to trust your knee again and kind of play without protecting it? Because without that little hesitancy, because you play with hesitancy, things are not going to go great.
No, yeah, exactly. You've hit the nail on the head there, Bryan, because I did start. They said I was ready. Mentally, I wasn't ready. I didn't trust it. I think there were 2 elements of the mental side that wasn't ready. I didn't trust the knee because I'd done everything right and it had gone. So if I do everything right again, why won't it go again? So there was that element. but there was also the mental side of elite performance, which is really tough. There's a lot of pressure, and I'd got so used to that bubble of being an injured player, stepping back into being a first team player with that pressure and expecting to deliver what I was doing 3 years ago with a different body. And I found that really, really tough, that kind of level of expectation that I couldn't deliver on, and my own trust issues with my knee. And so and on the back of that, I did have some mental health struggles. So I had to do a lot of rebuilding, and I really had to start focusing on my mindset and working with some psychologists. And I really invested some time in that.
Right. Okay. That's a great transition into how did you going through all that rehab, and you're going through a long period of time. 3 years is a huge amount of time to kind of put into getting ready for the next opportunity. How did you stay, engaged mentally during those long periods of time?
Yeah, 3 years is a long time. I mean, most players with that long a time out the game, you don't normally come back at that level. And I kind of knew this as it went longer and longer. So that was tough, that doubt creeping in. Like, the longer this goes on, I literally probably don't have a chance of getting back yet. But the first thing I did, which you touched upon, I'd done my degree, and then I needed something else to get me. So I did my master's in leadership, in international business and leadership. And that gave me a focus away from football for two reasons. It gave me bigger perspective and took me out of the bubble of being injured, and something to my mind to distract myself on. But it also gave me that kind of direction in my next career, which I think we'll touch upon later, which gave me a safety net that if football didn't work out, I was at least preparing myself for a life after football. So there was definitely that element in terms of academics. But the other side of it was the work I had to do mentally to rebuild, to kind of have the second part of my career, which I did after these 3 years. And I credit that a lot to the work I did with a therapist and the work internally I did. I do a lot of meditation, a lot of mindfulness, and I really learned to let go of harmful thoughts. I really learned to let go of harmful storylines, get in the present moment, and whatever that zone is for people when they're performing, or even just training, or even everyday life. For me, that was probably more important, getting myself back in everyday life, and those kind of well-being traits that I put in place really, really made a big difference for me.
Well, I mean, as an athlete, I mean, you're constantly told, be tough, keep pushing, never show weakness. I think it's a little old school. It's kind of changing now, but looking back, where's the line between genuine resilience that you're pressing on to get back from those 3 years, and simply hiding the fact that you're struggling? When you mentioned the mental side of it, that you were struggling with it, that fine line, where's the in between?
So for me, my opinion is resilience isn't about not breaking. Resilience is about the ability to bounce back. And that's my view of resilience. Everyone struggles, everyone breaks in their own way, and it's not the ones that just never have any issues. It's actually, I believe that the strongest place you can come from, and the most resilient place you can come from, is actually working with your vulnerabilities, being aware of them first. I think awareness is such a crucial part of that. When you become aware, which my meditation, mindfulness, and psychology really helped me with, when you become aware of your vulnerabilities, you then have a starting place of where to work with them. And that gave me a lot of strength in who I was as a person. And from there, I kind of built outward that way. So even though I probably got knocked down and went further than I would have liked in that way, it allowed me kind of a way to actually build my foundations much stronger this time. And that's for me what resilience is. It's not about not breaking. It's about bouncing back and using those vulnerabilities to be stronger.
That's a great perspective. Great answer, actually. When you look at professional football right now, like I said, the popularity of the World Cup, at least over in the United States, I mean, there was a buzz for a month and a half, at least where I live down in South Florida, with all the teams, and we continue to have a buzz because we have a player that's based down here called Messi that a couple people have heard of. He caused a little bit of excitement. But when you start thinking about as a professional football player, or we can just make this a professional athlete, period. Are players given enough room to have honest conversations, or do they still feel pressure and say I'm fine and they just kind of get on with it?
I'd like it to be the first one, and there's a lot of good people out there. And as you mentioned before, it's changing. The game's changing. There's some old school methods and there's some newer school methods. Right. But if I'm being brutally honest, I still felt like I had to hide a lot of it, a lot of my struggles, a lot of my vulnerabilities, to almost protect myself. And I shared them with the right people where I felt safe. And that was my way of doing it. I would never suggest to anyone not to share them. I mean, always share your struggles, but just for me, it was finding the right people to share them with. And that was probably the safest way for me doing it in that time, and where I felt safest and strongest to do. And that allowed me probably to kind of, not hide it in some way, but just separate that kind of work. Not everyone needs to know I'm struggling. The right people need to know, and then I'll work from there. And then when I feel more comfortable and confident, and then, I could open up about my story. And that was my way of dealing it. And everyone's obviously different, but there's two things that it's crucial that you do share when you're struggling to someone, and someone you trust. But similarly, the game itself is probably not in a place where you'd feel. A lot of players, I know for a fact, a lot of players do hide it.
Makes total sense. Makes complete sense. And I think that's a real, very real and honest answer. So Duncan's story is a pretty good reminder that recovery isn't about, getting the body back. The mental side matters just as much, and taking care of yourself before something becomes a problem is usually better than waiting for the wheels to completely fall off. And we're talking about getting things better. Want to mention our sponsor. Today's episode is brought to you by Iron Faith Nutrition, a faith-based, family-owned company creating nutritional products that support everyday health, wellness, and performance. This week, we're highlighting curcumazine, designed to support joint comfort, mobility, and recovery, along with Vitamin Plus Herbs, a liquid multivitamin that makes daily nutritional support really simple. Whether you're recovering from training or simply trying to stand up without making those same noises your parents used to make, Iron Faith Nutrition has something that can help with your routine. Learn more at ironfaithnutrition.com, or for those watching online, you can click up in that corner of the QR code in the upper left corner and go right to the website. As always, supplements are intended to support a healthy lifestyle, not replace one. So speak to a qualified healthcare professional before taking any products and find out what's appropriate for you. Now we're going to jump back into our conversation with Duncan. And boy, I mean, you've been so transparent. It's amazing. You really recently retired at age 32, which I kind of laugh being in my 50s now. And I think of, 32 seems really old to me to be able to be playing at a super high level. But even though, there's been many opportunities to continue playing, what ultimately told you that this was the right moment, not just to end another season, but to end a playing career?
Yeah, I think it was probably a gradual period of reflection over time. And, you get a bit older, you probably get a bit worse, and can't quite do what you want to do. But also with the injuries I had, my body was starting to hurt a lot. And I was weighing up that pain versus what I could get out of it. And I've got 2 young kids, and I really value being able to play with them. And I didn't want that to come at a cost of pushing my body too far, that I wouldn't be able to do that later in life. So there was that element of it. And actually just listening to your product there about joint health, curcumazine, which I can't remember its full name, but that's something I need to look at, because my knee joint health is very much something that bothers me a lot. So we'll have a chat about that at some point. And the other side of it was, I think we'll touch upon it later, but was the exciting opportunities I had ahead with Peak 4, the company that I'm now working for, and a purpose that I really believe in. And I know we'll probably touch on that, but that was another reason that it gave me a purpose beyond that loss of identity to something a bit more meaningful, and I could kind of channel that ambition.
It's surprising that a lot of people I don't know. And get this. I just heard this topic as the new NFL season's coming up, and people are asking. Aaron Rodgers as a quarterback is one that when's it time to retire? When's it time to go out? And I was actually listening to the Dan Patrick Show, which you might not be familiar with, popular radio show in the U.S. But it's the question they ask a question about retiring. Is it retiring too soon? Do most athletes retire at the right time or too late? And they're always everybody's kind of hangs on for a little bit long. There's a few that have retired when I think most people think they should, but then there's some that you look at and you go, man, I remember when they were here and they kept playing till you don't necessarily see the great side of it.
Yeah. No, I think that's a fair point. I think I was described to it by do I want to retire from the game, or is the game going to retire me? And I wanted to make that decision before it was injury or something else happened that forced that upon myself. I wanted it to be my decision that I had control on. And yeah, I think that's a really interesting one with the nature of retirement. And I love my NFL, so yeah, the Aaron Rodgers story is a as well, because obviously Tom Brady did the same, didn't he? He went and then came back, and
right, but then he went out on top.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that kind of, I think everyone's different, but there are definitely cases where you see players maybe clinging on because they're a bit scared of what comes next. I think that's a brutal reality of some of the situations.
That's probably a very good point, and kind of goes into when you made your decision. What did you feel first? Relief, excitement, sadness, uncertainty, maybe a little bit of everything. Once it. Because I remember, you did an interview on Sky shortly after that decision. Yeah,
no, I did, and it's interesting you use those emotions. I can tell you know about this game and you know about the mind, because it's true. I had it all. I did have a bit of relief, I'll be honest. Playing at that level comes with a lot of pressure, a lot of expectation. My body was put through a lot of pain, and I did push it. And it's not an industry where you can just coast. Like, if I wanted to succeed, I had to be at it every single day to be the best I could be. And that comes with a level of pressure and drive that can be quite tiring. And so there was that sense of relief, but also the sense of sadness, because that also came with great things and great moments. And there's parts of the game that I absolutely love and I will really miss, and had amazing clubs, amazing fans, amazing teammates that I played with, and there's a lot of parts of the game that I will miss. So I have felt a bit of everything, and I still think I will. I think, speaking to players who have retired, I think it's quite a long process that you just have to work through. And as I said before, my main thing is being aware of it and just acknowledging it, and that's my way of dealing with these emotions. Let them happen, feel them, and then work them through there, and that's kind of how I've been doing it.
Okay, so this next question I want to talk to you about or ask you about, I can speak from personal experience, from transitioning from being a coach and coaching for the better part of my adult life into not coaching. And then even before that, it was being a college American football player and transitioning out of that, football, soccer, like I said, for our American folks who might get confused, it gives you an identity, routine, teammates. You just mentioned the teammates, competitions, kind of a clear way to measure success because you won or you lost or you had a great, whatever. So, how intentional have you been, or how has it been separating Duncan, the footballer, from Duncan, the dad, or the non-football?
Yeah, no, definitely. That's a great question. And as I touched upon with my mental health struggles, seeing a therapist, I did work through a lot of that even early on in my career. Those identity issues, as football was kind of taken away from me for so long, I had to process that. And so in a way, I've done a lot of that process in the middle of my career because of the injury situation and the close retirement calls I had. And so in that way, I feel prepared for it. And I've kind of worked on that separation of identity and actually, I'm much more than just a footballer that people know me as. And that goes beyond, as you say, like the dad, like I've got a 3-year-old and an almost 2-year-old. And, when you have miss a sense of routine with football, there's one thing that kids do, and they get you up in the morning every single morning. So I have that 2 young kids to keep me very much routine focused, getting up, getting out, and making sure that I'm making the most of each day. So they've been fantastic, as my wife has with me. So we're very lucky with the support network I have to kind of recreate that routine and loss of identity, because it's a really good point.
That is phenomenal. And now we're going to kind of transition into, as you mentioned a little bit before, the life after football. You're now the head of elite performance and business development at Peak 4, and helping translate the lessons from elite sports and the practical strategies for leaders and organizations is what Peak 4 does. Let's talk about Peak 4 for a second. What kind of drew you to working with Peak 4?
I think it was the mission, ultimately. I think it was Peak 4's mission, which is to essentially, as you say, use elite sport, use what it knows from its sports science, what it knows from recovery, all those kind of elite sport principles that make athletes the best they can be, but translate them into behavior change for the general workforce and regular people in their regular jobs, and making it more accessible. Because almost everyone you meet, you hardly ever meet anyone who doesn't want to feel better. People want to feel better. They don't always know how. Who doesn't want to feel better? When you wake up and you have a day where you feel good, it's a great feeling. And there's so much you can do physically and mentally, and that kind of holistic system in well-being that isn't necessarily understood, isn't necessarily taught. And I think elite sport has a lot of credibility in that space. And so when they approached me and I saw Peak 4's mission to make people feel good about themselves, make them happier and healthier, and from an organization's point of view, obviously, you want healthier and happier people for that sake in its own, of course you do, but they're also more productive and perform at higher levels. And that's the key that I believe with well-being is, and what I learned in my career. Well-being has to come before performance for me. You have to get yourself in the right physical and mental state to create the conditions to allow performance to happen. And I'm a big believer in well-being is the only chance you have of long-term, what I call sustainable high performance, because otherwise it will just be short-term. And the best athletes I've ever seen and I've worked with, and as I say, some are played in the World Cup now, they were also the best at switching off, and their ability to switch off and recover allowed them to switch on with such intensity and such productivity. So that kind of mission and that what Peak 4 do is really cool. It's something I'm really excited for. I get to meet and partner with wonderful people like yourself, and it's really cool for me to kind of bring that story from football and have that credibility of lived experience into this space.
Is there a lesson that transferred naturally from the football side into the business side?
I think if I was creating from a leadership point of view, so I mentioned obviously some of the wellbeing stuff and covered a lot of that. From a leadership and culture point of view, I think the best managers I played under were high support and high challenge environments. So they would challenge you when you need challenge you, but there was a lot of support there. There was psychological safety. There was freedom to speak up, freedom to make mistakes, freedom to learn from that, because I'm a big believer that in any high-performing environment, failure is inevitable. And the sooner you accept that, the sooner you can embrace it and then respond to it, and learn from it and grow from it. So I think that kind of growth mindset and that ability to transfer those kind of psychologically safe environments where you are challenged but also supported to succeed and fail and grow from that is a really cool lesson that can be shared across sport and business.
So Peak 4, one of the emphasis is the physical, mental, emotional performance. What did your career teach you about the dangers of pursuing maybe results and maybe ignoring the well-being of a person? that's expected to kind of produce those results.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was alluding to when I said my lessons and what I experienced when I probably fell in that trap myself, pushed too hard, broke down, pushed again without looking at the well-being cost, and I ended up breaking down mentally as well as physically. And that taught me a really valuable lesson that people can't just be pushed, and burnout and stress and health issues, that it's a pandemic across the world, in terms of the high levels of stress in jobs and corporations. So it's something we really need to focus on, and it's something that, if anything's only getting worse. So the time for looking after people and well-being is now, and it's twofold. It looks after the person and makes them enjoy their life more, but ultimately it makes them more productive in the long run for your organization as well.
Absolutely. We put the QR code for Peak 4 up in the corner right above Duncan's head for any of those that are watching online. But then also, if you're not watching online, you can go to what's the email address, or not email, but the website of what address?
Yeah, the website. Yeah, just if you type in Peak 4, that's PEAK, and then for the number, you'll see it on the website on there.
Awesome. All right, we're going to go into a little rapid fire session. Some fun questions. I think these are a little bit more. I mean, we were pretty serious about mental health and talking about things. Now we're going to liven things up to kind of end the show. And so, question for you: toughest defender you faced?
That would definitely be Virgil van Dijk, who's at Liverpool and plays for Holland. He's incredible. He can do everything. He's big, he's strong, he's quick, he heads it, he's great with his feet, he's intelligent, he's a leader, reads the game well, he can pass it. He's the full package.
That makes me happy, because I was actually at Anfield his first day coming in the building after he signed, which is
no way
that you said that. Yeah, he walked right behind me. I was like, man, this guy looks like an NFL football player, not what I would look as a European football player.
Yeah, imagine being me, 5'10" and skinny, and coming up against him. I had no chance.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, what's the best atmosphere you played in?
Best atmosphere. I think for me, it would have to be Man United were my boyhood club, and I went to Old Trafford with Middlesbrough, played them in the FA Cup, and there was 80,000 people there. Cristiano Ronaldo was playing, and we actually knocked them out on penalties, and I scored a penalty at the Stretford End, which as a kid I had a season ticket at. So that was quite a cool, it might not have been the best atmosphere from a home atmosphere point of view, because we knocked them out, but for me, that was the best atmosphere.
That's amazing. Was there a manager or coach who changed the way that you viewed the game?
I think Gareth Southgate was amazing for me. He was the England under-21s manager when I was there, and then he went up to the England national team, and he got them obviously to the final of the Euros and twice, I think, and semi-final of the World Cup. He did brilliantly, and England's best success for 60 years. So, and he probably was the best I saw at creating that psychological and safe environment, high challenge, high support, and he had so much emotional intelligence and such a great character and such a good person, a fundamentally authentic leader, which I think is a really important trait of leadership. And everything he said, he did in his actions in and around, but also away from the place. He was just a good man with good values and led as well.
That's awesome. Harder mentally, returning from an injury or retiring from football?
I'm going to say I'd say retiring from football, but the injuries I had, I think that was the real tough one. So if it's a severe injury like that, I'll go with that one.
One habit from playing professionally that you'll keep for the rest of your life?
The importance of what I learned, the importance of looking after well-being and switching off. That kind of how well-being comes first, mentally and physically.
Is there one thing you'll miss, that you will not miss about the preseason training?
Yeah, the pain. The pain. Simple answer.
I figure everybody's going through it right now, right?
Yeah, and I'm not jealous at all.
What matters the most under pressure? Confidence, preparation, or adaptability?
Good question. Preparation for me, because you prepare. If you do the right things mentally and physically in preparation, the confidence is within, it's deeper. Whereas confidence can be quite a hit and miss. If I could have one thing, it would be confidence, but it goes very quickly. So that preparation can be more long-term and more resilient to the highs and lows of confidence.
Finish this sentence. Real resilience is
not about not breaking and not being vulnerable. It's about how you bounce back.
Awesome. Final question, and we're all done. And this is more reflective than anything else. So, Duncan, there's a young athlete listening to you right now. He's injured, out of a team, been released, and is beginning to question whether an opportunity ever really existed. Based on your experience, what would you tell that person?
I'd say keep going. I'd say don't look too far ahead. It can be overwhelming. Focus on this moment right now today. We'll put something in place that will help you grow, whether that's a mental well-being habit, a physical well-being habit, or reaching out to someone, or learning a new skill. Decide something and stick to that, and just focus on this moment right here, right now.
Duncan, thank you for sharing your complete journey. Not only the victories and those amazing moments that you mentioned with Man United, but also about the injuries, the doubts, the loneliness and rehabilitation, the sessions, difficult decisions, man, that's really kind of shaped you into who you are. I mean, I think your story reminds us that resilience isn't measured by pretending the setback didn't hurt. It's measured by, what we choose to do after that. It really does. I think sometimes resilience means, taking more, one more step when progress feels painfully slow. Sometimes it means continue to prepare when nobody can promise another opportunity. And sometimes it means having the courage to close one chapter that opens up another one that's even more meaningful. So we want everybody to keep showing up, keep learning, keep preparing, trust the work that's been done. It's when no one's watching, and don't be afraid to rely on people to walking inside. And it's PsyOpt, and we talk about becoming the best version of yourself, but it doesn't happen by yourself. Reach out to others. Hey, you can catch every episode of Just a Cup on the Believe Network. You can watch full conversations on the YouTube channel. You can get it on Spotify, Apple, wherever you kind of get your podcast. So until next time, believe in what you're building. Stay ready for the opportunity ahead. Hey, remember that the end of one chapter is a starting point for the best version you could ever be. So for the next time, have a great one and enjoy it with Just a Cup.
Do you experience soreness, muscle fatigue, or joint discomfort? Then you should try Curcumazyme. It can help support your body's repair process and increase a healthy recovery. Using a synergistic combination of ingredients, Curcumazyme provides the most advanced levels to support a healthy, inflammatory response, improving overall wellness. For all your overall health and wellness solutions, go to ironfaithnutrition.com.